This is Matt from Theater and Stream, and this is a Minisode. Tell me if you've ever been in this situation. There's a new movie, it's recently out of theaters, you decide that you want to rent it on Amazon, on iTunes, or your preferred digital storefront. You pay $7 for the privilege of watching it, only to see that the next day, the movie's been added to a streaming service that you already pay for. This is, of course, by design. Movie studios would rather you pony up the cash to watch one specific movie than wait until that film hits a streaming service. It's all part of what I'll call the life of a film's monetary extraction. First up, it gets released in movie theaters. You pay to see a movie one time only at a set time frame in a room full of other strangers. Next up, the movie gets what's called its premium rental period. This idea kind of came about during COVID and it just kind of stuck around. It's basically you're paying a luxury tax to watch a film in the comfort of your own home. And then that's sort of usually accompanied with the claim that, these movies are still in theaters. But typically that's barely the case. Like they're just hanging on. And then next up, we have the standard digital rental. And this is basically what happens when the price of renting the movie gets massively discounted to a price that many people would actually consider more reasonable, usually between like $6 and $8. And this also typically coincides with the movie's disc release, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. And then finally, bringing up the rear, we have the streaming service release. This is when a studio basically dumps the movie on their own streaming service or they license it out to another streamer in order to entice a couple new subscribers or basically just to pad out their catalog. The only price that you need to pay for in order to watch a film at this point is basically just the cost of your monthly subscription. Now here's kind of the problem with all of this. If I'm willing to shell out the $6 standard rental price, but not the premium rental price, how do I know when that price cut is going to happen? Or if I'm willing to subscribe to a streaming service for 1 month in order to watch a particular film, how do I know when I should start my subscription or I should cancel it? Or, say that you want to watch the latest, greatest blockbuster as soon as possible, but you're really not willing to deal with a potentially awful theater experience. So how do I know I can watch that from the comfort of my own couch? Like, when is that going to happen? The short answer is essentially we don't know. Sometimes studios will announce it beforehand, but more often than not, they're like purposely obtuse over when and where you're going to be able to watch, sort of hoping that your FOMO gets the better of you or your curiosity, will just get you to shell out the cash in order to buy or rent the movie. There are, though, tools that we can utilize to make an educated guess as to when these new movies will show up. The first order of business is essentially looking up what studio produced the movie that you're looking for. By knowing the production company, we can basically figure out where a movie will eventually stream. Most major production companies have their own streaming service. There are a couple of curveballs in here, though. A24 is not owned by Warner Brothers, but they did recently make a deal so that Max would basically be the streaming home for their films. And this same deal applies to the production company Neon and Hulu. And then, of course, 20th Century Studios. Those are also released on Hulu ever since Disney bought Fox, and they basically wear the company like a skin suit, like a Wendigo or something. And, in that same vein of thinking, Sony does not have its own streaming service. They release all of their films exclusively on Netflix. And then finally, Lionsgate seemingly does not have a streaming service, but if you sort of dig a little deeper into the world of parent companies, you'll find out that Lionsgate does own Starz. And then the only one on here, I put it on here just because it's a little fun. They're not really a major studio, but both Shudder and IFC Films are owned by the cable channel AMC. So if you know the production company of the movie you're looking for, you can know where to expect to see it eventually. But what if you want to shell out the cash to rent or buy the movie? theatrical films have been available to rent as soon as 3 weeks after they hit the big screen. Well, others have waited literal months. Now, this is where things get decidedly more dodgy. We're getting into real Nostradamus, soothsayer territory here. But I can't really help but feel like there's a direct correlation between box office performance and how soon a studio puts up the film onto a premium service. Movies that are considered box office bombs will usually be shoved onto rental platforms as soon as possible to basically just try and recoup some of the cost. And this would be things more recently like Horizon, an American Saga, or the latest Borderlands movie. And then you take films that, sort of do respectably, films that have a long tail. They're given maybe a little bit more leeway at 4 to 6 weeks. This would be films from this year like The First Omen or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And then finally, we have absolute box office smashes. These films are kept in theaters as long as possible just so they keep raking in the money because people are going to them multiple times or because the word of mouth is so good and the film essentially becomes the increasingly rare monocultural event. And these would be films like Barbie or Inside Out 2. And then after the premium rental, you can expect the movie will be on physical release and regular, discounted rental, probably about a month or so after that initial premium rental. But then, after that, it's who knows. Over the course of making this minisode, I've sort of become increasingly aware of the fact that I may as well be looking into a crystal ball because there is no magical algorithm that's going to give me the exact dates for when something will drop on a streaming service. It literally varies from movie to movie. And that's by design. You're not supposed to know these things. But my advice for all of the intrepid penny-pinching movie fans out there like me who sort of hate this idea of renting a film only for it to appear on streaming just a few days later, it would be this. Number 1, follow a website that tracks post-theatrical release dates for movies. For this, I would recommend Vital Thrills or Vulture. Number 2, learn and memorize the correlation between a film's production company and what streaming service it will drop on. And check that service's selection often. Number 3, download a movie tracker app and create a watch list. Comparing the prices and availability of before renting or buying any movie digitally, that's going to help majorly. The app that I recommend specifically for this, the one that I use personally, is called Just Watch. Number 4, Google the release dates of movies. If you're about to rent a movie and Google tells you it's going to be on Hulu in a week, and you think you would rather save the cash, then find something else to watch in this never-ending stream of content that we always find ourselves in. These are the steps that will at least mitigate those unnecessary purchases. Everything else is going to come down to how bad do I want to watch this right here, right now. But that's going to be all for me this week. If you have any other tips on this topic, please do comment below. I would love to know any sort of money-saving tips or tricks you have. But otherwise, next week, Chuck and we will be back for a podcast episode devoted to the new Jeremy Saulnier movie, Rebel Ridge. Thanks.